Best friends Eric Monkman and Bobby Seagull are no ordinary tourists.
Ow.
They shot to fame with their epic tussles on University Challenge.
Rashomon.
Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Very good.
United by their love of British history, they're embarking on an adventure with a difference.
Monkman and Seagull in hot pursuit.
Traveling through time, from 1750 to 1900. Getting their hands on the greatest inventions of the Industrial Revolution and the Victorian era.
You beauty.
When scientific innovation transformed Britain into a global superpower.
This 150-year period, I would call it the greatest makeover of mankind.
They will seek out the groundbreaking firsts that they believe defined this extraordinary age of discovery.
Are you getting any signal?
From great engineering breakthroughs to trailblazing experiments.
Yeah, I felt that flame.
Celebrating an era that changed Britain forever and influences our lives to this very day. Monkman and Seagull have seen how technological innovation of the late 1700s laid the foundations of industrialization. On this, the second leg of their journey, they're making their way through their favorite discoveries from 1800 to 1850.
The first half of the 19th century was when industrialization spread to almost all corners of British society.
This period is building up towards Britain being the leading industrial power, and it's cementing their position.
It was a period when the Industrial Revolution's continued thirst for coal drove life-saving inventions.
Wow.
When the world's fastest locomotive found fame at the dawn of the railway age.
Stephenson's rocket returns to Rain Hill.
Yes.
And the launch of the world's first iron-hulled steamship would propel Britain to become a global superpower. It's 1815. Monkman and Seagull have come to the Royal Institution in London, a historical hotbed of scientific discovery.
Here's the entrance.
Founded in 1799, it was thought that through the Royal Institution's public lectures, newfound scientific knowledge could be applied to the industrialization that had begun to occur in Britain. As well as its now famous lecture theatre, laboratories and living quarters were built, attracting some of the most famous scientists in British history to work here and deliver spectacular displays to amazed 19th century audiences.
Welcome to the Royal Institution.
Oh, hi. I'm Eric. Pleasure to meet
Frank
you.
James.
Hi, Frank. I'm Bobby. Nice
Hi, Bobby. Yes, come up to the lecture theatre.
Thank you.
So have you been to the Royal Institution before?
No, this is my first time.
Oh, well, so a double welcome in that case.
Monkman and Seagull are here to discover more about the institution's famous alumni. One of them, Sir Humphrey Davy.
So would you say Humphrey Davy was almost like a rock star of his age? Like if he was nowadays, would he be like the Ed Sheeran of science?
Who's Ed Sheeran?
David Bowie. Imagine like the David Bowie.
Oh, David Bowie. I've heard of David Bowie. Well, he was certainly the most well-known chemist in the early 19th century, and that's partially because he attracted huge audiences to the Royal Institution. I mean, on a typical Davy evening, you get 600-700 people, and he liked explosions. Then, as now, if you put explosions in lectures, you will capture the interest of an audience.
But Davy wasn't simply here to entertain. He was tasked with solving one of the most urgent issues facing Britain. Coal was fueling the country's rapid industrialization. An increase in demand for steam engines, factories, and iron forges meant miners had to dig even deeper to reach this black gold. Steam engines pumping water had been preventing floods in mines for 100 years, but there was another dangerous problem. Miners would light their way in the darkness with candles. Contact between the naked flame and underground gases like methane caused deadly explosions.
Demand for coal in the United Kingdom increased considerably. Of course, that meant that surface deposits were depleted and people had to dig further and further down. And they needed a way to illuminate these dark mines without igniting these gases and causing many deaths.
Following a number of serious explosions in collieries in the northeast, the rector of 𝗵𝗶𝗯𝗲𝗲 asked Sir Humphrey Davy if he could solve the problem. Monkman and Seagull have come to see his solution that would enable Britain to continue its rapid growth.
This is Humphrey Davy's first Gauls minus safety lamp. Davy developed prototype lamps, and in mid-December 1815, he developed this lamp. He found all you had to do was to enclose flame in metal gauze. The metal of the gauze absorbs the heat, keeps the temperature down, and prevents an explosion, and light passes through the holes. This was tested in Hebden Colliery in County Durham. I do not know on what basis the first miner chosen to go down with a safety lamp was selected, but he survived, and it then went into mass production. There's hundreds of thousands, probably millions of these were made. And the lamp had two impacts. The first was it did actually reduce, in absolute terms, the number of mine workers killed. And secondly, it allowed the exploitation of deeper coal seams, because the deeper you go down into a coal seam, the more methane you get. So by going down more deeply into a coal seam, you increase coal production, which is absolutely essential at that point when new uses of coal were being found. And if you do statistics for northeast coal field, which is the only one we've got reliable numbers for, in terms of millions of tons of coal produced per miner killed, it goes shooting up like that to 1815. The lamp comes in and it goes down equally quickly on the other side. Now let's go and see the problem that these objects and documents were seeking to solve. But do pick up some glasses on your way.
Thank you. Most fashionable Monkman and Seagull. This is a telescope? Probably not. Hello.
So the first thing we're going to do is to fill this with natural gas, which is more or less methane, certainly methane between friends. So if you could take a cap to place on either end.
Okay. Eric, the caps?
It's just like graduation.
Yeah. Primarily methane.
Primarily methane. If you fill it for about 20 seconds
20
or
seconds,
so.
okay. So let's... About 20 seconds, Eric, yeah?
Yeah.
And we need to take the caps off simultaneously. 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
Wow.
You feel that?
Yeah, I felt that flame.
And
Yeah.
you can see why that would be a big problem in coal mines. Yeah. And Davy's solution was metal gauze. So if you could sort of put some metal gauze in the tube, we'll show how it stops a flame wave straight away.
That's pretty well.
There you go.
85%. Okay.
We're sealed.
Okay.
All right. Cap back on.
Cap back on.
And fill with gas.
Yeah, that'll do the trick.
Okay, that should be fine.
Gas back. So you're going to lift the lid for me and then I'm going to light it.
So, on 3,
Got it.
3, 2, 1. You see the flame simply doesn't go beyond the gauze.
Unearthly music.
Yes, yes, it vibrates quite a lot.
Well, thank you, Davy. You've saved the mind.
In the space of 50 years, Britain's annual output of coal production leapt from 10 million tonnes to 50 million, allowing the Industrial Revolution to accelerate, thanks largely to the safety lamp. Before they leave the Royal Institution, Monkman and Seagull must pay homage to another of its pioneering residents and his breakthrough discovery of 1821.
One has to be impressed by Michael Faraday's work. He's probably one of the greatest experimental scientists who's ever lived. I would say in terms of scientific contributions, he would be up there with Newton and Darwin and Einstein.
This is Faraday's magnetic laboratory.
This is the original lab?
The original lab, and Faraday would recognize this way to walk in through the door today.
With only a basic education, Michael Faraday became a bookbinder's apprentice at the age of 14 and was inspired by reading science publications. After getting a free ticket to a Royal Institution lecture, Faraday sent Davy reams of immaculate notes, leading him to offer the young enthusiast a job.
Faraday became laboratory assistant in the Royal Institution in the spring of 1813. This is his laboratory notebook. You can see here he numbers his paragraphs. He starts his notebook with paragraph 1 and finishes 30 years later with paragraph 16,042.
But it wasn't Faraday's note-taking skills that earned his place in the annals of history. It was his work on electricity that would mark a turning point in it being transformed from a curiosity into a new power source that would change the world.
And here is his drawing of the world's first electric motor. Faraday argued what you had here was an interaction of curved magnetic lines of force and curved electric lines of force to produce motion. And from this, later on, Faraday developed that if you define electricity and magnetism, you automatically define dynamic motion.
Faraday connected a magnet to a battery with a wire in a bowl of mercury, transforming electrical into mechanical energy. His studies of the relationship between electricity and magnetism paved the way for electric power as we recognize it today.
Michael Faraday developed the principles of electromagnetic induction, leading to the development of the motor and the generator, the dynamo. And ultimately, our modern world relies on Faraday, because before that, electricity was a principle that was sort of tinkered about by scientists in a lab, but he brought this technology into the outside world and into people's homes.
I can see a button that says power.
Power.
That makes sense.
Does anyone try that?
So 3, 2, 1. I feel like I've switched on like the town hall lights.
So there we have Faraday's electromagnetic rotations.
So connecting electricity, magnetism, and motion. That's what he...
Yeah, that's right.
In Albert Einstein's office, he kept pictures of eminent scientists. He had Galileo, Isaac Newton, James Clerk Maxwell, and our man here, Michael Faraday. Does Michael Faraday deserve his place among this pantheon of great scientists?
Well, without a shadow of doubt.
Goodbye, Faraday.
Another one of these?
Yes, please. Royal Institution lectures really captured the public imagination. And obviously, as a scientist, you have obviously a responsibility to create new science, new ideas, but then you also have a duty to communicate that. And I can imagine, had Faraday and Davy been born, 150 years, 200 years later and been in our era, he might have a YouTube channel and he'd be posting stories on Instagram saying, hi guys, I'm about to try isolating potassium today, wish me luck. Oh my God, guys, turned lilac, I isolated potassium. And people responding to his Instagram story. Faraday and Davy really opened up the idea of science communication.
The spread of scientific ideas propelled Britain to become the world's first industrial nation. By the mid-1800s, cities saw a huge influx of people to live and work. For the first time in history, the number of people living in cities outnumbered rural areas.
And cities almost like magnets of entrepreneurship, creativity,
yeah, exactly.
Lots of people together. It's like once it reaches a critical mass,
yeah,
like a Birmingham or Manchester or London, then it just flourishes.
Yeah.
You get great minds in the same place.
Yeah.
More people meant pressure was on to build more houses, factories, and transport systems. Industrialization saw bricks, iron, and steel rolled out to feed the demand in construction. It's 1824. Monkman and Seagull are traveling to the industrial heartland of Stoke-on-Trent in search of the foundations of 19th century Britain.
We should have worn thick socks.
I only have what I have in my suitcase. And
In this era of rapid progress, there was increased motivation to find fast-setting building materials that could withstand any environment. Traditional lime mortar of water, sand and limestone dates back 6,000 years to the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. But in the 19th century, the hunt was on for stronger alternatives. Enter Joseph Aspidin, a bricklayer from Leeds, who stumbled upon a breakthrough. Aspidin found that by heating clay and limestone at high temperatures, then cooling, grinding, and mixing it with water, he could create a very powerful cement that was extremely fast-setting. He named it Portland cement because its color resembled a popular building material, Portland stone. Aspidin's recipe is detailed in his 1824 patent.
3 parts limestone, 1 part clay, mixed with water, heated to a high temperature, cooled down, ground down, and then that forms the basis for Portland cement.
Aspidin collected his main ingredient, limestone, by hand from the roads. But today's industry requires much larger volumes.
So what can we see here?
So this is Caldon Quarry, which exclusively feeds our cement plant. What we're going to be doing today is a blast. We use ANFO, which is ammonium nitrate, very similar to fertilizer.
Have you ever seen an explosion before?
Can't say I have. How about you?
Hollywood films, yes. But I'm sure they're not real ones. This is a real one.
It's in range, so if you want to hold down arm.
Thank you. All right, ready?
Okay.
Armed?
And press fire.
A small step for Monkman and Seagull. A giant leap for cement manufacturing. I'm shaking. It's amazing to think that just a small press of a button here sends a signal over there to the top of the quarry, and that sends a message down to the primer, and then it causes the ammonium nitrate to react, and then the quarry's gone. The power of science.
Well, the quarry's still there.
The quarry's still there. Some bit of it's gone.
With limestone freshly quarried, Monkman and Seagull want to master the secret of Aspidin's alchemy.
So what Aspidin would do is we would take 3 parts limestone, mix it with 1 part ale, mix it with water to form a paste.
So it's a bit like ratios in cooking or baking, isn't it?
At the end of the day, it's a strange cake that we're making.
So if you want to start by taking a bit of shale, put it in there and give it a bit of a grind if you can.
Does it grind, or am I not strong enough?
Sprinkle of limestone.
I'm not sure it's about 3 to 1. I think we need more.
101.
Oh!
More, we need more. It's like 𝗿𝗏𝗄 twist. More.
And now it's time to add some water to the mix.
So what we're aiming for here is to make it a paste.
Let's get our hands in and...
So we would need it to have been finer for it to become a paste.
Yeah, and maybe a tiny bit less water.
So Aspidin would have gone through multiple variations,
Absolutely.
adjusting the ratio of the clay, limestone, the water, and eventually he got his final 3 to 1.
He'd have been there in his workshop, hammering away.
Just like we are.
Absolutely.
Well, I wouldn't build a house with this. Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Joseph's son, William, set up his own business after a family dispute and went on to achieve success with an even stronger product.
So were the Aspidins, father and son, able to make some money from their projects?
So William, the son, was a lot more successful than his father, even though his father was sort of almost the godfather of modern cement as we know it. You might have seen his cement if you've been in the London sewers, or the foundation for the engine building that Brunel built for the SS Great Britain.
After combining limestone, clay and water, the next phase in Aspidin's day would be to heat the mixture in traditional kilns with a cone lid. When limestone is heated strongly, the calcium carbonate it contains forms calcium oxide, giving cement its strength. By increasing the limestone content and burning it much harder, William produced a higher strength product.
this the temperature William Aspen would have used?
So Aspen managed to raise the temperature from about 1,200 to about 1,400, but I don't think they would have ever imagined that there would be heat on this size and scale.
So you know when you step off an airplane into a hot country and you're like, oof, the heat. And this feels like that, but 10 times hotter.
The heat is absolutely sensational. I mean, in that kiln there, it's essentially hot lava, and the flame is burning at about 2,000 degrees.
When Joseph Aspdin was in his kitchen tinkering away, coming up with a patent in 1824 Portland cement, he wouldn't have imagined that this would be the legacy, ultimately, of his idea.
I don't think he'd have ever imagined it to be created on this scale, and I don't think he'd have ever imagined the world to have such a demand for cement.
William Aspdin set up a cement works in 1852 with a capacity of 3,000 barrels a week. Further developments by him and others would lead to cement as we know it today. The world now uses over 4 billion tons a year, making it the most widely used man-made substance on the planet.
Well, cement is literally one of the foundations of the modern world. It has a large contribution to the way we live, both in terms of our buildings, but also in terms of environmental impact. To create cement, you have to heat limestone, which is made of calcium carbonate, the important word there being carbonate, to a high temperature, and the carbon is converted into carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, and it's a large proportion of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it's both something that makes civilization possible, but it has its drawbacks.
Cement.
Mortar.
Mortar?
Mortar.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, 𝗵𝗶𝗄, mortar, 𝗵𝗶𝗄, cement, cement.
Mortar, 𝗵𝗶𝗄, mortar, 𝗵𝗶𝗄, cement, cement. Somehow we need to work the furnace in somehow.
Yeah, we do. Joseph Aspdin, 1,200. William Aspdin, 1,400. Mortar, 𝗵𝗶𝗄, mortar, 𝗵𝗶𝗄, cement, cement. 3 parts limestone, 1 part clay,
and shale.
New mass-produced construction materials like Portland cement enabled Britain's infrastructure to grow. Armies of workers, known as navigators or navvies, had been creating the canal network that would distribute goods from factories to ports.
I think we're about to go through a tunnel. I love the way tunnels cut through hills. That's you.
The navvies, they were the people who would have built the canals during Canal Mania. And they gained a lot of experience in cutting passages through rocks. So if you wanted to build a tunnel, you would hire navvies.
But from the 1830s, canal construction was superseded by a new building project, railways. Monkman and Seagull are on a pilgrimage to 1829, and the next stop on their list of industrial breakthroughs. Rainhill train station, an unassuming stop in a small town between the Liverpool and Manchester railway line. That was, in fact, the launch pad for one of the most revolutionary transport breakthroughs in human history.
Oh, there's a plaque here. Let's have a see what it says. Oh, not just a railway station. It's a landmark.
It is. What is it? International Historic Civil and Mechanical Engineering Landmark, Liverpool and Manchester Railway.
By now, Manchester was at the centre of a global textile industry, and Liverpool was its key port. But the increase in trade meant the connecting roads and canals couldn't cope with the volume of traffic. So a new railway line was built. But a fierce debate ensued over what should run along the track. Some advocated horse-drawn wagons, others stationary steam engines pulling ropes. The engineer of the line, George Stephenson, believed his self-propelled steam locomotives were the answer, but his bosses were deeply skeptical of this newfangled technology. So in 1829, a competition was held at Rainhill Station to decide which method of transport was up to the task.
The Rainhill trials started out with 10 entrants. Only 5 made it to the start line. The 𝗂𝗶𝗃𝗲, a horse-powered treadmill essentially. Ludicrous, but it entered. Perseverance with the vertical steam boiler. Then the serious entrance. We had sans-pareil, meaning without parallel in French, and this was a heavy beast juggernaut. Then we had the light, quick novelty, a crowd favourite. And then the one that we all know and love, Stephenson's rocket.
One of the most significant developments in transportation history. Well, shall we have a look at where it actually happened?
Yeah, it's going to be a long walk.
We'll see, yeah, okay. So along this path is where the trials would have taken place. Where would they have begun?
So not that first red brick bridge, but the second one would have been the starting point of the trials. And then it would have gone along here.
A mile down that way, and back, and back, and back,
and back,
and back and forth some more times.
Quite a few times.
Yeah, quite a few times. Yeah. Long enough to simulate the distance from Manchester to Liverpool.
2019 marks the 190th anniversary of the victory of Stephenson's rocket at the Rainhill Time Trials. And a replica is returning to its spiritual home. Monkman and Seagull are tracking its journey.
There it is!
There's the rocket! Woo!
The Stephenson's rocket returns to Rainhill!
Yes! Monkman and Seagull in hot pursuit.
Yeah. Can we outrun it?
Can we outrun it? I think
not on the road.
Not on the road. Do you think it'd be disrespectful to outrun it?
Nah.
Nah.
Oh, look at that profile view. Good afternoon, Your Majesty.
Oh, how nice to meet you.
Your Majesty, what do you think of the homecoming of the rocket?
Oh, the rocket is the most wonderful engine I have ever seen. It's fantastic. I'm all in favour of these new steam engines. I think they are wonderful.
It was a great honour to meet you, Your Majesty.
It's very nice to meet you, and very nice to meet you. Enjoy the rest of your stay in Rainhill.
In its day, the rocket was the most technologically advanced locomotive the world had ever seen.
Hi, I'm Eric. Pleased to meet you.
Good afternoon, Eric. Nice to see you.
Hi, I'm Bobby.
Hi, Bobby. Welcome to Rainhill.
Thank you.
Wow, this is the rocket. This is the locomotive that actually won the Rainhill trials. It's a replica, right, but this is as it looked 190 years ago.
And what has now become the symbol of Rainhill, the bright yellow and black rocket, is what everybody knows as the rocket, and coming from Rainhill. They reckon something approaching 12,000 people actually descended on the area in order to watch the trials over the period of the 3 days.
What was its top speed?
Its top speed was 30 miles an hour, and that is one of the key things about its success in Rainhill. Until the rocket did 30 miles an hour, the fastest thing known to man was a galloping horse, which does about 20 miles an hour for a short period. Here you've got something man-made that will do 30 miles an hour for a long period of time. And people were just going, we've never seen anything that fast.
Can you tell us how it works?
It had a boiler there with little tubes in. It was called a multi-tube boiler. It heated the water in the boiler far more efficiently. The competitors was a bit like a kettle with a lid on. There was just one sort of element for heating. What this did is heated up the water in a far more efficient manner.
When Stephenson was talking about the Rainhill trials, he said, locomotives should not be cowardly given up. I will fight for them unto the last. They are worthy of conflict.
He had faith in his own invention and his own engineering abilities. Yeah. And that's proved by not only by the rocket, but by the development of railways ever since. Yeah. Gentlemen, as you are now here, suffering the weather with the rest of us, would you care to come and join us in the parade?
Yes, please.
Love to. So I do a wave.
In 1830, the 31-mile-long Liverpool to Manchester line opened. One record shipment carried 500 tons of goods, and a passenger service was quickly introduced. It was the world's first intercity passenger railway, in which all the trains were timetabled and operated solely by steam locomotives.
The town of Rainhill is obsessed about Stephenson's rocket. And why wouldn't there be?
Quickly do one for that.
Their town was witness to the locomotive trials, which essentially changed transport in the UK and around the world. Before railways, most people were born, lived and died their lives within a 15-mile radius. But after this, the whole of the UK was opened up. It was a social revolution.
After Queen Victoria's coronation in 1837, the first long-distance lines were opened from London to Birmingham and Bristol. By 1845, nearly 2,500 miles of railway were open, and 30 million passengers were being carried.
Railway mania led to connectivity all throughout the United Kingdom, and from the United Kingdom, the excitement over railways spread all over the world. One thing about the railway, people had to be on time or else they'd miss their train, so accurate timekeeping became much more important. And also unified timekeeping became important because it would be hard to keep track of what time trains left if everywhere had slightly different clocks. So in Britain, people converted to Greenwich Mean Time. In the world, they started to use time zones to keep the regular time in different bands stretching around the globe.
I think the world became smaller, more connected. I always love the stat about before developed transportation, it would take maybe 3-4 days to get to Manchester from London, but by rail, up to 4 hours. So just completely shrunk the country.
Yeah. I have one of these candies. Would you like one?
No, thank you.
Okay.
The railways caused an explosion in urban migration, with the edges of Britain joining up with the cities in the centre. They were one of the biggest transportation breakthroughs of all time, transforming the landscape both physically and culturally. A more mobile population inspired inventors to come up with other ingenious methods of personal transport. It's 1839. Monkman and Seagull's next stop on their list of era-changing inventions is a Victorian village in Shropshire.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Mayor.
Hey, Bobby, nice
How are
to
you,
meet
Bobby?
you.
That's
Yeah,
good, thanks.
We'd like to learn more about the complicated history of the bicycle.
Certainly. The first bicycle that's in the UK, which was 𝘃𝗶𝗰𝗲 in 1839, sadly he only made one machine, but we have got pictures here which I can show you. And that is a picture of his machine. As you can see, it's lever-driven on the rear wheel. So what he effectively is doing is actually treadle sliding it.
It's like a
not
CrossFit, like a
rotating.
CrossFit machine.
It is. It's very much like a CrossFit machine, but it's also same as the 𝗃𝗏𝗃 steam loco, where he's got forward and back motion into rotary motion on the wheel.
So instead of steam-powered pistons, we've got human-powered
pistons. Yes.
Pedal pistons.
Yeah, exactly this.
Blacksmith 𝘃𝗶𝗰𝗲 was inspired by the steam locomotive to invent a new method of personal transport in the form of the first pedal-driven bicycle. But despite mastering the art of riding his bike on rough country roads, Macmillan never patented his design. And his lone breakthrough would be overshadowed by the high-wheeled bicycle, popularly known today as the penny farthing.
The reason for the large front wheel, which is the driving wheel, is because they realised that the larger the wheel, the bigger the circumference, the further you travel for one turn of the pedals.
So bikes suddenly opened up the prospect of people being able to travel beyond their towns.
Clubs would go to not, say, the next village, but the village beyond that. So socially, it was a big improvement, but also on the gene pool, and society and the health of the nation was improved because there was more intermingling, more different marriages, you were spreading outside your locality. So it actually improved the health of the nation, not only by the physical activity, but with the social interaction as well.
It's like a social lubricant.
Exactly, Bobby, yes. It was the real gift to the world, you know, to design and own a bicycle. You could go anywhere with it.
The bicycle represented much more than a mode of transport. Not only did it transform social patterns, it challenged gender roles. When they were first introduced, women were largely expected to ride side saddle. But as popularity increased, old conventions were quashed. Women enjoyed new levels of independence and liberal fashion choices.
So, who's going to be the exciting man who's going to ride the high bicycle? I think, Bobby, you ought to be the man to do it. So,
putting my life on the line here.
So if you'd like to stand that side, please, Eric. On.
Step highly.
Grab hold of the handlebars. Straighten the left leg. Reach forward with your right thigh and pull yourself onto the saddle. Now, look forward where you're going to go.
Forward, yeah.
And then start pedalling.
On top of the world. Okay.
Now you can see as you pedal how it affects the steering of the machine.
Yes.
And how difficult it is to keep it in control.
Yeah.
So if we do a slight left turn here, turn it to the right, and then turn it to the right, you see the difficulty. You're now on what we call full steering lock.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that the maximum lock I can do?
Yes, it is, yes.
Ah, okay. I feel a bit giddy.
It does. It gives you a good impression of what it's like to ride a horse.
Or it feels like to be 6'8".
Yeah. So if you now slide back on the saddle, Bobby, put your left foot onto the mounting step. That's your right foot.
Oh.
Slide down the backbone with your foot, transfer the weight onto the mounting step, and then stand down on the floor.
Okay. So now I'm back on...
Terra firma.
Thank you, my stabilizer.
Congratulations.
Friends. So my question is about the safety of this sort of bike. Obviously, I felt, you know, assured with you two gentlemen here, but without you there, I'm thinking, actually, is my safety compromised on this sort of bike?
Yes, it is, and that's why what we'll try now is the new Rover Improved Safety Bicycle.
Initially, bicycles cost upwards of £500 in today's money, making them a luxury item for the burgeoning middle classes. But by the mid-1890s, a rise in affordability caused by a second-hand market and cheap American imports saw 1.5 million men and women cycling in Britain.
The main difference is, of course, as you can see, guys, that it's now got equal-size wheels, front and rear, but also the position of the handlebars and the saddle and the pedals gives you the triangulated effect, but also it's the most efficient position for a cyclist to be. And that design and layout of cycles hasn't changed in the past 150 years. So, Eric, would you like to try the new improved Rover safety bicycle?
Yes, please.
Certainly. Come around the back here.
Good luck, Eric.
Well, if you can do the high wheel, I think I can handle the safety.
Reach forward for the handlebars and scoot with a good strong scoot on your right foot. That's it. Straighten the left leg onto the saddle and away you go.
Cycle, Eric, cycle.
The front wheel doesn't seem too...
That's it.
Doesn't seem the most...
It's fairly stable.
Okay.
But you can see now the difference is, whereas before Bobby was having two holders, you're now riding on your own, so that's the safety aspect of it.
Safety aspect.
You've got a lower centre of gravity. You can control the machine a lot better. Just then bring the machine to a halt.
Telegram for Mr. Seagull.
Look, it says, Monkman versus Seagull, a cycle race has been declared.
Stop.
Then that's it. What we shall do is, Bobby will put you onto the pneumatic tied machine of 1898. Eric, you can ride the new improved safety bicycle of 1885. We'll ride up the high street here and see who's going to be the fastest and better machine, or even the better rider out the two. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, I think the pneumatics are winning.
Go, Bobby. Keep going, Eric. Slow down, Eric.
Technical innovation and shifting social attitudes made the bicycle one of the Victorians' biggest success stories. But now Monkman and Seagull are on their way to see one man's invention that didn't make it quite as far off the drawing board.
Charles Babbage had the idea of creating a computer, but he wasn't able to pull it off. But later, when people actually could create a computer, they looked back at Babbage and sort of saw him as their forefather, or their intellectual forebear.
Yeah.
So we're off to see the Babbage computer?
Yes.
Well, a modern reproduction.
A modern simplified reproduction.
Yeah, simplified.
Of Difference Engine 2.
Difference Engine 2.
Which is just essentially a glorified calculator.
I guess it's a calculator that can do like multiple steps with one input, right?
Monkman and Seagull have come to Royal Holloway University in Surrey to get their hands on a working model of Charles Babbage's automatic calculator based on his original designs.
Looks like an industrial building.
It does. Does it look like a boiler house?
I don't think I'd be able to distinguish a boiler house from just any other building with smokestacks.
In an industrialized Britain, tables of calculations, statistics, and data were increasingly relied upon for engineering, trade, finance, and navigation. But at this point in history, sophisticated calculators did not exist. Trigonometry, logarithms, and complex polynomial functions had to be worked out manually by clerks and laboriously inputted by hand. While spotting errors in navigational tables, respected mathematician Charles Babbage apparently exclaimed, "I wish to God these calculations had been executed by steam." He approached the British government with a radical idea: to fund a steam-powered automatic calculating machine.
In the 19th century, what they found was that steam provided more effort, at greater speed, and more reliably than a human being could. Charles Babbage was interested in how to do calculations quickly and without errors. And that led him to investigate the use of mechanical ways of performing calculations. Ultimately, he hoped to do so with a contraption powered by steam. Plans that have come to be known as difference engines and analytical engines.
Babbage obtained £1,700 from Prime Minister Lord Liverpool's government, one of the world's first grants for technological development.
Hi there, I'm Eric. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, I'm Bobby.
Hi, Bobby. I'm Adrian. Welcome to Royal Holloway, and welcome to our steam-driven calculator.
Take off my bag here.
This is, I presume, this is Charles Babbage's version of his Difference Engine 2.
Yes.
Tell us more about this man.
Well, he was a very inventive man his whole life. He went up to Cambridge in 1810 and eventually became Lorcaisian Professor of Mathematics. That's the same chair that Stephen Hawking had until recently. So let's fire this up.
So again, we're turning... Ooh.
So just clearing the cylinders out. You can see there's water in the exhaust there. That's come out of the cylinder. This is a tap here, which, if I open it wider, more steam will come through and it will run faster.
Yeah, you can see
and
it.
if I close it, then it will slow down a bit.
The steam is coming through here.
That's right, and then it's going into the cylinder at each end and pushing a piston backwards and forwards, which is driving that rod, and then the crank axle's turning that into rotational motion, which is being geared down through the pulleys here so that it runs at a reasonable speed there.
Can you explain how this ingenious machine works?
Sure. Let's come around the front so you can see how the thing is arranged. So the first thing to notice is that there are 4 columns with digits on, and each of these is holding a number, and it holds them in decimal. So if you look through the little sights here where the blacks are, you can see there's one number behind each one. Here we have the units, the tens, the hundreds, the thousands, the 10,000s, and the 100,000s. So this particular number is 000006. Each time the steam engine turns the handle, the number that's on this column will be added to the number that's on this column. The number that was on that column will be added to that one and that one to that one. So there's this ripple of addition across the front here, and that's all it's doing. And it's not as big as Babbage's final design because it's only got 4 columns by 6 layers instead of 8 columns by 31 layers.
By using an equation known as the method of differences, it was possible for complex sums to be programmed in, worked out mechanically, and printed on a sheet of paper at the other end. The aim was to save time, but most importantly, there was zero margin for error.
23,000.
It's too fast for you to write down.
When we think of calculators and computers nowadays, we imagine the whizzing of electronics. And who'd have thought calculating and computing power through mechanization? But that's what this era was about.
How about we try and calculate x cubed, so that's all the numbers x times x times x, for all the integers above 0.
So the whole number's 1,
well, 1,
2,
2, 3.
Yeah.
So 1 times 1 times 1, 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times 3 times 3, etc. As many as we can in 1 minute.
So we're going to do 2 different methods. You're going to use the method of differences. I'm going to try and do what I teach my kids, just squaring and cubing. And that's going to go using Babbage's method.
Method of differences, but mechanical.
Mechanically, okay?
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. What the machine was doing and what I was trying to do was convert a multiplication problem into many, many addition problems. As a human, I can't add that fast, but the machine could do the calculation like this. Time. Time.
Sorry, pen's down. I got to 15 cubed.
I managed to get all of 3. There's a lot of addition involved in this method.
So this machine does 1 per second. So in a minute, it would have done 60.
So the method of differences is not so useful if you're doing it by hand, but very useful if you're doing it by machine.
Absolutely. But if you've learned some of your squares and cubes to start with, as my students would have done, it makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah, but you're a human.
Babbage would go on to conceive the analytical engine, designed to have even higher powers of analysis and to evaluate any mathematical formula. Working alongside mathematician Ada Lovelace, this would be the most ambitious idea of his career, and if built, would have operated as an early version of a computer, as we understand them today.
Well, thank you so much for showing us this machine.
Yeah, we love looking into what the mind of Babbage created here.
Extraordinary man. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye now.
Babbage's ideas earned him a place as one of the most celebrated icons of automatic computation. But factors including runaway costs and personnel problems meant that none of his designs were fully realized. The government cut his funding in 1842, by which point he had spent 10 times the money originally intended, £17,000. A formidable sum and the equivalent of 22 steam locomotives, amounting to an extremely costly failure.
Charles Babbage is a figure of romance, and there's something inspirational about failing in a heroic way. So I think it is right that we remember him and sort of think of him as the grand uncle of the modern computing industry.
I guess it's a condition of the times. Back then it was more difficult for women to contribute due to the structure of society.
You see Caroline Herschel,
Florence Nightingale,
Ada Lovelace,
Babbage. We saw in the 1830s an acknowledgement of the contribution of women towards science. So William Whewell, who was a master of Trinity in Cambridge, he coined the term scientist specifically to describe Mary Somerville, who was a mathematician, astronomer, physicist, because back then, was it men of philosophy?
Men of science
men
and
of
natural
science.
philosophers.
So they didn't have anything specific to describe people that were women contributing to science. So actually, we owe women the word scientist.
Monkman and Seagull are en route to Bristol in 1843 for their final stop of inspiring inventions. By this time, the application of steam power dominated British industry and transport.
So one thing about the steam engine, it was what they would call a general purpose technology. So once it was invented, people could come up with new uses for it. You could pump water out of your mine. You could pump water in your canal.
Power locomotives?
Steam hammers.
Power looms?
Steam-powered water vessels.
Steam-powered air vessels.
I mean, now you can have a steam turbine, which would use steam to turn into electricity.
Steam cleaning your clothes, but that's not steam power.
Yeah, well, it's like a steam bath, right?
Yeah.
Monkman and Seagull are here to discover how a young man by the name of 𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗲𝗃𝗲 was about to take steam power one massive step further.
Hi, I'm Bobby. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Bobby. I'm James. Nice to meet you.
Hey, James.
Hi, Eric. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, welcome to the SS Great Britain.
Brunel had made a name for himself, building bridges, canals, and railways. In 1833, his plan was to add a transatlantic shipping service to the London and Bristol railway line, leading to a seamless single-ticket link between London, Bristol, and New York. His first ship was SS Great Western, but Brunel's SS Great Britain would be his most technologically advanced and the largest ship the world had ever seen.
So we're now in the dry dock where the Great Britain was constructed, which gives you a great view of the iron hull, which is enormous. It's the first iron-hulled open ocean ship and the first with a propeller to drive it across the oceans.
When SS Great Britain was built in 1843, it was called the greatest experiment since the creation. It rivaled its predecessors for many reasons, including its gigantic iron hull. But Monkman and Seagull are here to see Brunel's most daring addition, a screw-driven propeller, which was the most cutting-edge maritime technology of the day.
Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 blades.
Brunel's first ship, the Great Western, was propelled by paddle wheels, which on the second ship, the Great Britain, was replaced by a propeller.
A ship with paddle wheels was not that effective on choppy seas because if a paddle wheel came out of the water and one paddle wheel was sunk into the water completely, it would be very hard to have motive power and your ship would have a hard time progressing forward in a straight line. So the revolutionary aspect of the screw propeller, which operates underneath the surface of the water, is that it allows you to continue to navigate in choppy seas.
So we can see the propeller would have been submerged underneath the water. And I'd like to think of a swan, you know, gracefully going across the top of a lake, but underneath the swan's feet madly flapping about. And I can imagine the same thing with a ship.
Yeah.
So would it have been difficult to develop a propeller that could propel a ship of this size?
At the time, propeller technology was completely embryonic. It had not been applied effectively in a commercial environment or across the ocean. So Brunel had to develop something that would work with something this big. 8 different propellers were used to see which worked best. And he went through 32 different trials on a naval ship as well. Different types of propellers with different designs, cutting and shaping them, and recording all of the data meticulously to figure out what would give the greatest thrust and the greatest efficiencies.
Monkman and Seagull are getting a privileged insight into the original designs for Brunel's propeller from his very own sketchbooks.
So we've got some of the work that Brunel was doing, using different designs of propellers and cutting and changing them and so on. And you can see different designs that he's drawn out, and they're different positions on the ship.
But you can see Brunel's mind developing, because nothing here is perfect. There's half-drawn sketches of a propeller there.
Yeah, like you said, there's a 4-bladed, here's a 3-bladed propeller. This looks possibly like it's 2. So, you know, all these different trials and tests he was doing on other ships helped him figure out what might work best.
This is almost a demonstration of if you don't succeed, try again.
Yeah, exactly. You can see as we go across to some of his other books, tabulated data. And if you look, I think it tells you across the top there.
Time, revolutions, rate.
This is for the naval ship, and there's more. This is just titled steamship. But again,
you're using long division method there.
Yeah.
And Just before this time, 𝗙𝗶𝗯𝗲 was coming up with ideas of a difference engine, like a calculator. But back then, there weren't sort of freely available mechanical calculators. People had to sit and do the numbers themselves. Here, it's done the long, hard way. And again, you can see there's an error he's made. He's had to redo his long multiplication. It does feel like from this era, generally, people that were prominent, be it engineers or architects and designers, they had skills in multiple fields in a way in which nowadays we're so specialized. But back then, someone like Brunel could draw, could manage a team, he could come with ideas for propellers. Just like the range of skills are mind-boggling.
Brunel's SS Great Britain meant the 3,000-mile crossing from Bristol to New York took just 14 days. The increased size allowed for lavish interiors, attracting the British nobility and politicians to make the transatlantic crossing. It not only improved overseas relations, but meant American perishable goods could be sold in British markets, transforming the economy on either side of the Atlantic.
Not only did the construction of the SS Great Britain transform technology, but I think it opened up the possibility of mass travel, people to migrate to different lands. So actually this ship played a role in changing social structures throughout our countries.
The SS Great Britain would have a long 90-year career carrying passengers and exporting goods. Conditions were ripe for the 19th century to gain pace.
The introduction of steam-powered oceanic transport revolutionized the world. No longer dependent upon favorable winds, people could travel from place to place much more quickly. It allowed the transport of perishable goods, changing diets, and indeed even changing national economies. So new markets were opened, new industries developed, national economies became more interconnected. Ultimately, the world underwent what's now described as the first period of globalization.
In this 50-year period, Monkman and Seagull have explored how iconic inventions of the industrial age transformed the physical and social makeup of the country, recreating developments that saved lives and built cities, and journeying to the very places that gave birth to our revolutionary transport systems.
The world basically became modern. Infrastructure, transportation networks, all of these things were really pioneered in the period we're looking at.
What are we going to learn next time?
Here we go again.
Next time.
Can I offer you a custard cream?
As the Victorian social revolution snowballs.
Almost 100 years of progress gets us here.
Exactly.
Scientific breakthroughs see Britain establish instant communication with its foreign empire.
Are you getting any signal?
A steep increase in wealth allows Victorians to take up leisure pursuits.
I found something that looks a bit furrier.
And Monkman and Seagull get their hands on one of the most treasured objects in the history of science.
So here it is, the Holy of Holies.